back to Adult Adventist, also known as YA. I'm John Ubangan.
And I'm Chandler Coleman, and we're glad to be back.
We are glad to be back.
After a long absence. It's been a while, but we are back. And our last episode posted was a guest episode. So this episode isn't going to be a guest episode, right?
Or is it?
Or is it? So, Emma, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Emma Goddard. I am going to be a sophomore in college at UTC. I'm very, very excited.
Awesome. Okay, so since we've been gone and since you guys care so much about our lives and what we're doing, we'll give a very brief synopsis of what's been going on in each of our summers, and then we'll get into the topic for today.
We'll start off with Chandler here.
Oh, I was going to ask you.
We'll go down the line. Chandler, what'd you do this summer?
I worked at summer camp Cohutta Springs. It was awesome. I had fun. I was a counselor to a bunch of little kids. So, yes, that was very exhausting at times, but very rewarding. I loved every second of it, and I'll definitely be back. I had fun at summer camp, and now I'm at Southern. So, yeah, what about you, John?
At the beginning of the summer, I had this big road trip with my brother. He was transferring bases from Norfolk, Virginia to San Diego, California. And so we had this big road trip. We passed by a couple national parks. And then I was able to spend some time with my auntie down there in California, in Sacramento. And that road trip was long. I was starting to miss home. So I'm glad I'm back. And now I've just been busy with stuff about college. I'm not going to Southern. I'm going to Chad State.
Yay.
So yay, Chad State. But yeah, that's mostly been what my summer has been about. What about you, Emma?
Well, I've kind of been all over the place. Around the beginning of the summer, I went to Spain for 2 weeks, which was a blast. I love traveling.
Way to just one up the two hosts here, but all right, keep going.
Just Spain,
Gotta find my way. Anyways, I also went to DC. I'm going to Boston tomorrow and Florida in a few days. So I'm traveling a lot, and other than that, I've just been working. So,
I didn't know you were going to Boston tomorrow.
I am.
That's crazy.
Late notice.
All right. Well, we have a topic for today, and I'm very excited about this topic because if you watch podcasts or you watch any videos in general, you may look at the title of a video and be like, oh, well, this topic either does apply to me or it does not really apply to me. But the topic we have today, I feel like, is a really good one because it can it applies to pretty much everyone. I feel like to one extent or another, to however much or little, it still applies to everybody. And so that's what I'm fortunate about this title. And our topic is, why are so many young people ashamed of Christianity? Why are so many young people ashamed of Christianity?
So I want to start off with a question here before we really dive into some, I would say, deep stuff. But I just want to ask a simple question. And I think we can just go around. Why have we been ashamed before?
Who wants to start? I guess I'll start. Why have I been ashamed before? And I feel like it all kind of goes back to the central idea, just being down here on earth. And even in a Christian school, like I had the blessing of going to a Christian school my whole life. And even in a Christian school, it almost doesn't get better. It can almost kind of get worse. It's just the fact of caring so deeply and caring so much about what other people think. Mm-hmm. It can feel weird to kind of talk about your faith because in a sense, at least where I was at, it was like it feels like everyone's kind of numb to it. Kind of numb to the talk of Christianity. And when you bring it up, it's like, what? I've already had Bible class today. I've already had chapel today. I've already done my devotion today, And so it can honestly be even more weird to bring up like Jesus and bring up Christianity in a Christian school where you should feel comfortable talking about it. You would, from the outside looking in, you would think you'd be the least ashamed about talking about Jesus in a Christian school. But oftentimes it just gets very overlooked and we don't feel like we can talk about it at all.
No, yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think a lot of it for me is me being really, really like conscious about what other people think. And I think it's not just me that is really affected by that, but like what Chandler said, a lot of people, when you have that environment of where people are scared to really, really talk about Christianity because of what others think, it's a dangerous thing because a lot of us just aren't afraid to get out of that comfort zone to talk about Christ.
I was also always in a Christian private school before college anyway. And just growing up, I didn't really have a problem sharing some of my insights when it came to like Christian ideals in class and stuff. But I remember one of the first times that I remember being like sort of ashamed or feeling weird about it was when around the end of, I think it was 5th grade, there was a kid that signed my yearbook and like put in quotations, God's child. And knowing the specific person that did it, I knew it was kind of in like a joking, like making fun of you manner. And I don't know, it made me feel kind of weird about it. It made me kind of more aware of the fact that even in the Christian school, I was kind of set apart from some of my other classmates. So there were some times where I felt a little bit of a disconnect with my own peers in a Christian school.
Yeah. And I think to put a word to that is reputation. A lot of people are worried about their reputation.
Yeah.
Jesus was perfect, but he was hated a lot while he was on this earth.
Yeah. And I think another just quick thing, kind of going back before we get into that, but one quick thing is I think a lot of people, it's a very valid point, but I think a lot of people are scared of being hypocrites, whether that's in a big way or a small way, because people are scared to get out in their faith, because then people will be like, oh, that's cool. They're talking more about Jesus. They're striving to be more Christ-like, but they have all this wrong with them. And it can kind of create, I feel like people are scared of being like, I don't want to pretend like I'm greater than you when I still have all my problems. And then people will judge me for those problems. Because I think anywhere you go, everyone's going to be very judgmental. And that happens a lot. And so it's a very valid reason to be like, I'm not going to try to look like I'm better because people are going to judge me. Because I know I'm not better, so why would I try to look better? But I feel like at the same time, that's not what it should be at all. You're not trying to look better by not being ashamed of Christ. But that's what so many people on the outside looking in think about. And I'm not going to lie, I view a lot of people like that too. If I see someone that I think maybe isn't the most godly person and they all of a sudden are talking about Jesus, I'll be like, why are they talking, Yeah. Like even I struggle with that. Even I'm like, what relevance does what they have to say mean to anyone else? I struggle with not accepting them for what they say. And so I know I need to do a better job at that. But I feel like that's why a lot of people are scared and ashamed about that.
Yeah.
And so getting into the thing, worried about reputation, it was interesting because on this earth, a point that kind of really changed my perspective on this is Jesus was perfect when he was on this earth. And yet, who was the most hated person when Jesus was on this earth? Him, exactly, right? And so the fact that we think we can go out in faith and go out being Christian and go out of our way to act like Jesus and think that everyone's just going to like us, that's not how that worked. With Jesus himself, he had thousands of people plotting his death. So what makes us think that we can escape that hatred from other people?
And going back to about what you said about people not sometimes being scared to talk about Jesus because they themselves don't feel worthy about it. Like linking it to this point, Jesus was the perfect human, and yet he was hated. So if he was gonna get hated anyways, and he was perfect, like why should that let you being stopped from talking about Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Just think about it that way. Don't be scared about the reputation, because like I said, Jesus was perfect. Like we said, Jesus was perfect, but he was hated. And so, like, if you just take all of that out of consideration, there's a lot to be done there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because a way to kind of counteract that is probably just finding common ground with the person you're talking to or the person that's being judgmental to you. Because if you find common ground and realize that, oh, I struggle with this too, and that's why I think Bible studies and stuff like that is so important. And just interacting with people on that level, because people tell you things that you didn't know that both of you may have struggled with, that you didn't know that multiple people struggled with. You're not open about it because you think no one's going to relate to you. Yep. But in all reality, there's so many people that struggle with the same thing. And when you get those deep conversations that aren't easy to have, but it's kind of like an analogy I like to look at. It's kind of like going swimming. There's two types of people. Some people that just jump in to the pool, and people that are like touching the water. Oh, it's too cold. Oh, it's too cold. And then after 15 minutes, they might they might have their feet in the water. Yeah. And so when you're talking on a deeper level with people, it's just about breaking the ice. As soon as you break the ice, it's perfectly fine. As soon as you jump in the pool, like it's a shock at first, but right after that, like half a second of shock, like you're perfectly fine and you're all like talking together. But so many people like to just touch the water. Oh, that's cold. I don't like that. I don't like that. But if we would just have those conversations with people, 11 times out of 10 when we talk to people on deep things like that, like we're going to get something out of it. We're going to learn something. We're going to be able to help someone out. We can help someone else out, and we can also receive a blessing from it.
I agree with that a lot. I feel like for me, whenever someone talks to me, I feel like whenever they like just jump straight into like a deep conversation or something really, really heavy, it kind of turns me off of the conversation a little bit. So I think whenever you find that common ground with someone, it really like kind of lowers their guard a little bit and allows them to open up and like, oh, this guy has this same thing going on as me, and he's opening up. Why couldn't I? Why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
You know.
And we also just live it. It's important to realize we live in a society that is so deeply addicted to caring about what other people think. And we can see that through social media, right? Because people construct like their social media platforms to what they want other people to see and what they want people to view them as. And obviously, I mean, that's rightfully so. Everyone does that. You don't want to give out your worst for what everyone can see, you know? But it's just kind of an interesting thing that what you see on social media, oh, I may really like that person. Oh, that person's really, really cool. But they could be a completely different person when you actually meet them. And that could just be with interactions in general. People are always going to put their best self forward, their best foot forward, and then as you get deeper with them, you may realize that you struggle with the same things. You may realize that they're not any better than you, because no one is, right?
Yeah.
And we're all, like the Bible says, we're all filthy rags. We're all worthy of death. And so I think we all think that there are people that are higher than us and lower than us, but in all reality, we all struggle with sin. Just because it's a different sin, just because it's a public sin and not a private sin, doesn't mean that anyone's any worse. People just get judged more if they're sinning in public. Like if you cuss or something like that, people see that. People judge you for that. Whereas if you do sins that are like more behind closed doors, people aren't going to judge you for that because you don't see that. But that doesn't mean that you're any better or any worse than anyone else.
Society has different levels of like better sins and worser sins, whereas God sees it all as just sin.
Exactly.
I like that.
Exactly.
But I feel like a lot of it right now, the problems that we face as Christians is like we've been talking about is reputation, and it really gets to us a lot. And I feel like one of the things that really affects us is when someone does decide to not worry about their reputation and step out. I feel like there's a little bit of a cancel culture, would you say, Chandler?
A little bit. Try a lot. If you stepping out in your faith, you get ridiculed by pretty much everybody. And just for me, just little things like later in my high school life, like I would get up front a lot and talk. And it's just funny how, like, I didn't really take offense to it. I kind of loved when people would criticize me, but it was always funny how I'd get usually about 3 times more criticism than I would like support, which is fine, because a lot of people were like my friends just messing with me. But at the same time, it's like people are so eager to tell you what you did wrong. Yeah. And they're genuine about it. They'll get at you. But it's just interesting how even me, when I'm thinking about people, when I'm like even judging people, it's like, oh, what is this person doing wrong? You know, I feel like society is just so quick at looking at people's faults rather than what people are doing good.
So do you think cancel culture has a big correlation with people being ashamed about Jesus?
I would say so, because I mean, we live in a society today where people don't know how to have disagreements or have to have discussions about differing views. And it's a lot easier to just push away that view, push away that person, because on the surface you guys don't agree, instead of listening to that person and growing. And that goes both ways, like depending on like whether you're the one talking to a non-Christian, or like that person is sharing their beliefs with you. It's really important to have that interaction and learn something, even if you don't like end up having a situation where the person goes, I'm committing my life to Christ, so please, how can I get baptized? Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just, okay, yeah, here's what I believe. And then you guys can be like, okay, cool, here's what I believe. And it's really important to grow and share those things. But it doesn't happen often simply because people are too afraid of being canceled, just shut out, you know?
Yep. And it's interesting because it's like we've built such a culture, especially in America, whereas you have to be one side or the other. And if you're in the middle ground, if you agree with both sides, you're going to get completely trampled on. You are not allowed to be in the middle ground. You aren't allowed to agree with both sides. And so living in that culture, it's like, okay, I'm going to agree with one side, or I don't really agree with either side, but I have to pretend like kind of like hide out on one side so I don't get completely trampled on by everyone else. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of that sometimes. If someone isn't sure of something, I'll be like, well, this is why you should be, you know? So I know that's something I need to get better at too. But it's just, we're so just eager to get after people. It's like, it's almost like everyone just loves to do it. Like they see someone that says something we disagree with, let's get our gang together and just come at this person, you know? And so cancel culture definitely is huge, and it's something that when we do it to other people, we don't really think about it. We're just like, oh, I showed them. They had nothing to argue. I proved my point. We don't think it of cancel culture. We think of it as, oh, I'm educated in what I believe in, and that person's not. When in all reality, we should be trying to help them out and encourage them and not bring them down.
I think a lot of times, sorry to interrupt, a lot of times the reason why people are so quick to jump on others within the cancel culture is that differing views can threaten your own, or at least you can feel threatened by differing views instead of like embracing them and learning from them. So that's a big reason why people cancel them, because they're like, no, I don't want anything to make me think. I want to just sit here in what I already believe and what I already think.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are very close-minded, and I think that's another thing that's dangerous about this is because like when you find someone with an opposing belief or opposing like statute in their life, a lot of people are just quick to really, really shun that idea. And I feel like in a way that kind of pushes the people away.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people like are scared to almost, you know, share about Christ, is like because they don't want to accidentally shun people away.
Yeah. And I feel like in the same way, it's like when you tell something to someone and when you're arguing with someone, they could bring up some valid points and you could realize that you're starting to lose the argument. But I know I'm guilty of this. No. I'll realize and I'll be like, it gets deep. There's no backing down now. So you just like come up with stuff that you have no idea what you're talking about just for the sake to defend your own argument.
No, I agree with that.
And that happens in society all the time, no matter what you're talking about. People just, you could even realize that you're going downhill, but you're still, even if you know the other person's right, you're still going to defend what you started with. And I think that's a huge thing is, I know I'm guilty of it. People cannot admit they are wrong in today's day and age. They cannot admit they're wrong. They cannot admit that someone else has a good point. Like even looking like just back in years past, just touching on politics, like people would like tell each other, oh, that was a good point. But now it's like, no, you suck. Just straight up. And it's like, there's no like, really conversation. It's just jabbing at each other. And that's not just in politics nowadays. That we've kind of inherited that just as America in general. Like everyone's just jabbing at each other. If you don't disagree, if you disagree, there's no agree to disagree. Everyone is just kind of after each other. And when you don't agree with someone, it's like, oh, that person is way down on my totem pole now. I can't talk to them. I can't look at them now because they disagree with me. So
it's a very dangerous game. Like you said earlier, there's literally no middle game into it. It's just either you're on one side or the other. Yeah. And if you're in the middle, you're getting trampled. Your beliefs and thoughts about the topic are just completely thrown out the window. And I think that's the dangerous thing about talking about Christianity to a lot of new people is a lot of us Christians just tend to like really put aside their beliefs and thoughts when we should like be more comforting, be more of a friend, be more common to what they think.
And so I think like another question going off this is people are scared about maybe what other people think and scared of being a hypocrite. But also there's just the genuine question. You could not be scared of that, but just the simple question of what if people ridicule me? What if I fail? I mean, these are valid questions too. And so we have to realize that faith is a beautiful thing, right? Yeah. That we have to rely on faith. The Bible says that we can't rely on what we do. We have to let God work. And this is especially true when we're talking to other people. Like me being a camp counselor this year, there was campers that brought stuff up to me that I had no idea how to handle. And before I started talking, I was like, God, you got this, because I do not know what to say. And God would always put the words in my mouth that the kid needed to hear. And it may not always have been the most smooth delivered thing, but in the same way, like God put in my heart what I needed to say to these kids who needed it. Yeah. And in the same way, when we jump out in faith, because God loves when we jump out in faith. If he sees that we're jumping out in faith and wants to make an impact on someone else, wants to share his character with someone else, wants to share him with someone else, he's gonna give us what we need to do that. He's gonna equip us, because there's that quote that says, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so he's gonna give us what we need in any given situation that is for his purpose, and we have to live believing that.
I like that.
I think I definitely agree with that. I think it's not. I feel like for me, I definitely struggle a lot with this. It's just not being really like open to God. I think that's what most of it is for me, is not really being open to God and letting God work through me and letting him use me as one of his servants to preach to other people. I think that's what really gets me down, is just not realizing that God is there. He wants us to be. He wants to use us to get to reach other people, because I really liked what someone said this one time. I don't remember where it was from, but someone said that there's someone that God wants you and only you specifically to reach. And so don't let your abilities and your gifts be stagnant. You offer it up to God. Help him offer it up to God, and let him use you to reach other people. It's not our works. And if we fail, if we ridicule, God's there. He has a plan for everything, right?
Yeah. And kind of going off that, it's kind of segueing into one of our other points. We've all felt conviction before. Most of us have felt conviction before, to maybe talk to someone about Jesus, talk to someone about Christ. And it's kind of just about that 1 second of decision time that you have. Because when you feel conviction to talk to someone, you have about 1 second where you're like, okay, yes, I'm going to go for this.
Should I do it?
Yes.
Should I do it?
Yes, am I going to go for this? Or no, I can't do that today. And when we have opportunities to evangelize, the devil always puts any excuse in our minds not to. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I'm not in the right place with God right now. Oh, I can't do this right now.
Oh no, what if they judge me?
What if they judge me? What if they just don't want anything to do with it? If we have any doubt in our minds when it comes to evangelism, we won't do it. Why? Because we can come up with so many excuses not to evangelize. And if we have any doubt in our mind when we go into it, we're not gonna do it every single time, because we have so many excuses to go off of. And the way I like to look at it in this 1 second of decision time, it's not an easy thing to be like, okay, I'm going to go out of my way, talk to in some situations, an absolute stranger, and ask them about God. And the thing is, if you have 100 times where you have the opportunity to tell someone about God, and let's say in your whole life you've never taken that opportunity, in the next 100 times, even if you take 10, 12 of those opportunities out of 100,
there's still a portion you're going to reach.
That's 12 chances of someone to be saved by Christ. That's 12 chances of someone that heard something that day that they needed to hear. There's 12 chances, and there's many chances that are possible that you could tell someone that day something that would change their life, something that would save their life. And so just thinking of it from that standpoint, don't be discouraged when you don't have the courage to take a chance, because even if we take just a small fraction of the percentages of the time God convicts us, even if we go out of our way in just a small amount of those times, just once, just doing it one time is eternally better than doing it 0 times, because that's someone that God needed to impact.
It far outweighs the rejection. And I think that's what really is important to think about, is just, yes, there will be times when you will be rejected, you will be shot down. They don't want to talk about something deep sometimes, but there will be times when there's someone waiting for you to talk about Christ. And the risk to reward ratio, it really far outweighs the fear of rejection and ridicule and failing.
Exactly, because think about it. If you go up to someone in like this random restaurant and you're like, oh, God's really calling me to talk to this person, and you go and talk to them and you're like, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? And they're like, no, I'm good. All right. It's awkward for maybe a couple seconds and then you're done. You're like, yeah, that's not ideal. Yeah, that's embarrassing kind of. But you're over it in a couple minutes. Whereas the other side of the spectrum, you ask, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? And they say yes, and you sit down with them and you literally save their life. Like they could have been suicidal. You save their life and then let's say they give their life to God. Like that on the scale of being rejected and it being awkward for a couple seconds, that on the scale is so much higher. You save someone's life. That's the best thing that could happen, is to literally save a child of God, save their life, bring them to heaven, bring them to Christ. And yet on the opposite side of the spectrum, the risk is, okay, it'll be awkward for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Like the reward is so much greater than the risk. And we should realize this when we go into these situations.
Yeah. And next time you think about that, when you have that moment of hesitation, that 1 second of decision time, remember the risk and reward. Remember how much you'll possibly be able to change someone's life when you just go for it and let God work through you. Yeah. And I think I want to segue into this next thing about why are we not ashamed about Jesus during church camp, or not even just church camp, like settings of like when people are on fire of God, for God. Why are we not ashamed then? But then when we leave that setting, we go back to our homes, when we go back to our schools, we just go back. It's almost kind of a reset back to where we were in the beginning, and we just totally forget the experience that we've had, the fire that we've had for God, and we just let it all die down. So why do you think that happens?
I would say that one big factor is the fact that it's a spiritually high environment. So everybody is there. Everybody is like on fire for God. They're like being vulnerable. They're singing with the songs, blah, blah, blah. And if you're the one person that doesn't actually partake in that, then you end up looking like the odd one out. Whereas when you go back home and everyday life is happening, that's not a spiritually high environment. So you end up being the oddball out if you are the only person out there like outwardly being passionate for God and like being a light for him and stuff. It makes you the one that's out of place.
Yeah. That's so crazy, because it just all goes back. It's all full circle to just caring about what other people think, right?
Exactly.
Because in that environment, in church camp or wherever you may be, that has a high spiritual environment, like you said, if you're not worshiping God, if you're not being active about it, you're probably going to be one of the only ones that aren't. Yeah. And so you're going to be the oddball out. And it completely reverses when you get back home. It's like if you are worshiping God, then you are the odd one out. So it's just crazy that your environment and the people around you we let that so much dictate us when we should. The Bible tells us multiple times that we should be living for an audience of one. Living for Christ, living for what God thinks of us, not caring about what the world thinks of us. And yet when we look at it, and I'm guilty of this, and everyone's guilty of this to an extent, we care so much about what other people think. And that's exactly the perfect point. Like at these church camps, at these things, everyone's so on fire for God. And a lot of it's sad, but for some of the reason, it might just be because they don't want to be the odd one out. It might be, since everyone else is doing it, let me join in this too, you know? And it's sad to think about, but how many of us are so like involved in that and think about and care about what other people think so much that the only reason we do a lot of the things we do, and this doesn't even have to be taken spiritual, the only thing we do, a lot of the things we do when we're around other people is just so we don't look like the odd one out.
This reminds me of another thing that is common when you grow up in private school or go to any church camp or anything, but altar calls. I do not like altar calls for many reasons, but the biggest reason is just the fact that there's so much social pressure to go up. Like the first few people that go up, you can tell that they're genuinely wanting to go and dedicate their life to Christ. And now there's a whole like wave of everybody else going because they don't want to be that one person sitting in their seat, not going up because, oh no, that means that I'm not wanting to follow Jesus. And honestly, there were times where I would see people that wouldn't go up and I almost had more respect for them than other people that would go with the crowd, because those people were at least being honest and saying, I'm not there yet.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. And we had a quote Emma, you had a quote for us a while back
Yes.
that we were supposed to read a while back, but that's okay.
It's okay.
It's a good quote. We'll read it now.
Yes. So I think I actually got this from my devotional this morning. It was either this morning or earlier this week. But there was a quote by Brene Brown that says, "Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change."
Wait, read that one more time.
Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change.
Wow.
What do you guys think about that?
That's a deep quote. I feel like I really resonate with that quote. I feel like a lot of us have a lot of interesting beliefs and the things that I feel like we have a lot of like very staple like thoughts and faiths about religion and about God and about preaching Christianity. But like we've been talking about this whole time about shame, reputation, and cancel culture, I feel like that's the very thing that really kills the fire that we have for God, right? And I think the best way that we can really battle that is through God and asking God for help. And it's a very, very, very prominent problem in Christianity is that we let that shame really get to us deeply. And I said, it like this quote said, it really corrodes the things that we are capable of doing, not only in our community, but through ourselves and through others.
Yeah. And I would argue from like the opposite standpoint. Have you ever regretted being unashamed about something when everyone else is like ashamed about it? Have you ever regretted being unashamed at a situation where everyone else is ashamed? The situations where it seems like everyone else isn't standing up for God or isn't standing up for whatever else it may be, all the times that I've chosen to just go out there and just be unashamed. Like, yes, it's very hard to do at first and maybe even in the moment, but looking back, I never regret when I chose to be unashamed instead of being ashamed. And that's not to say that I do that all the time, because obviously there's lots of times where I give into that and I just kind of stay in my own little bubble and be ashamed of things. But I can tell you the times that I've chosen to be unashamed, I can't count one time that I've regretted doing that. And I think it's just always a good thing to remember that if you, especially for Christ, if you go out of your way and you choose when everyone else is being scared about it, when everyone else isn't being bold, if you go out in faith, if you go out in boldness, if you go out and be unashamed, 110% you will not regret it. You will never, ever regret being bold for God, ever. And so it's just an important thing. It doesn't make it any easier, but there's no excuses. There's no way we're going to feel worse about being unashamed about something.
Yeah. And I think to really like cap it off, not really end it, not necessarily right now, but like to really like recap and to go through the whole thing, I think if we look at it in the perspective where it's not about us, like be a little selfless a little bit and just put yourself aside for a second and just think about what am I really doing this for, right? Mm-hmm. And I see it as you're not really doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the others around you. You're doing it so that you could share the salvation to everyone around you, right? Because if we don't talk about Christ and if we are ashamed, if we are always in that bubble, if we always walk the path that society wants us to walk, what are we doing? What impact are we making on this earth? What change are we really doing? Nothing, right? We're just sitting there stagnant. And I think if you really look at the reward in a perspective that you're helping other people witness to other people about salvation, about the true love of Christ, then I feel like for me it's kind of a little bit of a motivation to really step out more and to really share more about Christ. Is that reason of it's not me, it's God working through me to help others.
Yeah.
And don't be ashamed, because when you help others, it really, I said this to Chandler once, it's almost kind of like a little like train where once you start doing something, who knows, that person that you
like planting seeds.
Yeah, planting seeds, that person that you planted a seed in might be able to help someone in the future and
you may never know what happened, but that's not the point. We aren't supposed to know. We aren't supposed to care about that. God will take care of it.
Exactly. And I think it's that whole point of ignite each other's fire for God and really show everyone how to not be ashamed about God and just be out there, help each other. And if we ignite each other's flames up, eventually there's going to be a huge fire for God and a huge movement. And I think that's really the beautiful thing. And I think now more than ever is what we really need to focus on is just be on fire for God, no matter the shame, no matter your reputation, no matter the what ifs of failure, of rejection. Just really ignore all of those and pray to God and just find the sole purpose of why you're doing it. I have a verse here. It's from Galatians 5, verse 13. And it kind of links this whole thing, this whole subject about being more bold for God. It says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love."
And so, yeah, but I think this whole episode we've been kind of talking about all the problems, and we haven't really talked about a lot of solutions to these problems. And John, you just touched on a lot of it. But I think another huge thing is making it about, when you're especially having the first interaction with someone, making it about building relationship and not just preaching to them. Because there's I feel like just a theory out there that, all these Christians, they're just preaching to everybody and they're telling you everything that you're doing wrong, repent or go to hell. It's kind of like, if you're not a Christian, that's what you view evangelism as. Repent or go to hell. That's what evangelism is to all these people out there. And it's our duty and it's our job to show everyone and show them that that's not the meat, like most of it. Like, yes, that's what it's like essentially all about, but building relationship with people, making friends, truly building relationship, truly investing in people, that is what really matters. Because once you truly invest in someone, once you truly sacrifice your time and sacrifice what you want to do to help someone else consistently, that's when they'll realize that you truly care about them, and you'll be like, why are you doing this for me? Yeah. Why do you truly care about me? Because it's more about them asking you why you believe in Jesus and not you asking them about it. That's the beauty in it. Yeah.
I really like that, investing in someone. I feel like, because for me, it has happened to me once. It's like someone talks to me about Christ and then boom, they're just out of my life, and they don't really do anything to help me through the problems that I'm facing. Or
I think we're all guilty of that.
Or through the things, temptations or whatever I'm struggling with. They just pop in your life and just tell you how to do things, how to get better through believing in faith, and then boom, they're just out. Guys, we have to invest in each other, and I think when you invest in someone, it really like opens up something inside of them that really helps them realize that, this is it's kind of like a little portion of a glimpse of what God did.
Yeah, it's something they're willing to invest their life in for. Exactly. If they see that you've invested in them.
Exactly. And I think.
Oh, finish. Sorry.
I think that's the beauty of it all. I was done anyways.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just going to say, within building relationships, it's also helpful if you can be relatable to the person. One thing that's good is staying up to date with current issues that are going on and using that to connect with faith, because then it makes it more understandable to the person. Or even creating analogies. I know Chandler loves his analogies. Like, that's a great way to have like modern day issues and be like, this is how it relates to God or something like that.
Yeah. Important to be relatable to the person, because if you're not relatable, if you're trying to invest in them but you don't really understand what they like, what their preferences are, you're not gonna really get to them. And I feel like this could be a whole other topic, but just maybe even churches today, they're so, this is how I'm gonna do it, so this is how everyone's gonna receive it. And everyone receives everything just a little bit differently. And so it's important to realize, and that's exactly the importance of relationship, is to learn how to cater to people's needs, to cater to what people want, not changing anything, not changing the gospel, but delivering it in a way to where people will receive it in the best way possible. And because that's why people that aren't Christians hate the word evangelism, because it's like, it just means repent and believe in the gospel. This is what people say. This is what the street preachers say. And that's the only way to go. That's the one line that there is. Yeah. When in all reality, there's so many different ways to bring people to Christ. There's so many different ways to build your relationship. There's so many different ways to interact with others, to be with others, to have Bible studies, all this great stuff. It doesn't just have to be this one straight path that one person set forward. You can you can cater to what people need, not changing the gospel, not changing the message, but cater so that people can receive it in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at Jesus' life, he did preach a lot and he did talk a lot to the multitudes. But if you look at what he did, he healed people. He spent time with people. He ate.
He had a lot of different strategies.
He ate feasts. He had personal one-on-ones. And I think a lot of us get really, I forgot the word. Get a little tunnel
vision, yeah.
Tunnel visioned on just doing it one certain way about preaching and evangelizing, like Chandler said. But there are multiple ways to reach people and to really show people about Christ, not in just a preaching manner. And yeah.
Another way to stay relatable is also being willing to be vulnerable. If you're never sharing any of your own faults or struggles with somebody else, then they will always see you as the perfect person that's telling me how to live my life.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be like, hey, I struggle with these things. I mess up all the time, but here's how God has helped me. And here's how he can help you.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah. I feel like definitely opening up is an important factor of it all. I think when you become vulnerable with someone, it really opens up their heart and helps them kind of feel comfortable around the situation. You guys could have more of a comfortable conversation with that. And like Emma said, like I said, like Chandler said, it really drops their guard and helps them to be relatable and to have something in common with.
And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. I know at the beginning we talked a lot about like the issues at hand, but I think we also provide a lot of insight on how to handle the solutions to these problems as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode because it was definitely a topic that I think can be relatable and can impact a lot of different people, something that everyone struggles with to one extent or another. And so thank you, Emma, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Yeah, we're glad we can be back doing this. We're glad that worked out. We're glad that God provided a way. And just thank you guys for tuning in, especially if you listen to the whole podcast, all about 40 minutes of it.
We really, really appreciate you guys. And stay on fire for God. Be bold for him. We'll see you guys in the next episode.